Of the Capital Program Oversight Committee, public comments done?
We have one public speaker, Jason Panero.
Hi, Pat. Hi, Ronnie. Gonna be very brief. It's gonna be regarding PTC. As you guys know, New Jersey Transit Corporation, on its meeting on Wednesday, did a very vague report regarding positive train control. So, Jano, I saw your report this morning. I loved it. If NJT did it the way that you do, I will be more impressed. But those of west of Hudson are right now in an uncertainty. Why? Because NJT doesn't provide the information that you, Jano, provide over here. Timelines, information of by when everything's gonna be done, not NJT. NJT just provides like minimal information here and there, but not complete. But I want to hats off for you, Jano, and your team in this effort. And I'll see you guys Wednesday morning.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the CPOC meeting for September 23rd? Second? Any changes? All in favor? Aye. Anybody opposed? Abstained? Thank you. Don, any changes to the committee work plan?
No changes, Mr. Chairman.
All right, terrific. Then I would call on Jebby Chin to start with a report on the Long Island Railroad and Metro North update on positive train control.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here to report on PTC. I know the last time I was here was in February, earlier this year. However, we've been reporting every month at the committee meeting. So just to put you in the right context of where we are today relative to when we met in February. In February, we had just achieved compliance requirements for 2018 to get the extra 2 years to complete the project. We also had already initiated revenue service demonstration on both of our pilot lines, both Metro North and Long Island. And we were working an issue related to the undercar scanner retrofits with the equipment we had gotten from Siemens. And we were struggling a little bit with having the contractor keep their commitments as far as schedule and delivery of software. I'm glad to report as of today that, you know, although we've gone through a couple of hiccups with software delivery, both railroads right now, as of today, have both our pilot lines in revenue service demonstration. We completed all of the required FRA runs to demonstrate PTC operations. We've both gone into extended RSD on a couple of segments. Metro North is now on Danbury, and also, you know, running it on their Hudson North. Long Island Railroad has extended RSD on their second pilot segment, which is a non-ASC territory from Babylon to Patchogue, and also Hempstead line. Both railroads also have, to meet the milestones for completion, have submitted their safety plans to the FRA, which gives us a good amount of time to get comments back within the 180-day window required by FRA to reply and get a conditional approval. Long Island Railroad has also progressed their system-level designs for Harold. Many agreements have been made with Amtrak regarding the delivery of that segment to go into ERSD. It includes a safety server interface, as well as an agreement on incorporating their wayside design, their database of the F-Tower territory into our database, which actually streamlines our design and actually simplifies it and eliminates the boundary issues that we previously had. So
So in the case of the LIRR, are you going to, from Harold to Penn Station, are you going to use Amtrak's PTC that they've installed, or are you going to use your own PTC?
they have part of the wayside with PTC, and we also do as well. But the two functions that we have to worry about is transitioning across the boundaries, which originally we had to have a safety server interface to eliminate the multiple boundary segments for Harold, because it's like in a less than a 1 mile window. We're incorporating their territory into our safety server database, which then basically all of the temporary speed restrictions that would be implemented in that area would be input through our dispatching system at PSCC, through the new Long Island Railroad PTC system.
Okay.
The only boundary line left for Long Island Railroad would be the one at Gate, which only really affects Amtrak trains. So that's why the design is much more simpler. We eliminated a lot of technical risks making that agreement, and it took us a little time to make it, because it does impact some operational changes up at the PSCC.
Thank you.
As far as budget, the last time we spoke, the budget was less. We had gone through an analysis of what was required to complete the project, and we have subsequently gotten approval for additional funds to complete the project, mainly due to the 2-year extension that we incurred because of the additional 2 years that we need to finish. So the next few slides are risks that we have identified over the course of the last few months at the committee meeting. The first one is the deployment of software for Long Island Railroad. It required a new procedure to streamline the procedure for uploading software to our mobile communication package on the train. This is still a risk as far as having to load the software multiple times. However, we did get a streamlined set of procedures this week, and the contractor has also agreed to help expedite the uploading of software when required. So right now, we're in the middle of uploading, actually getting a new a safety review of the updated software that we have for our back-to-back functionality release, and we're in the process of uploading software across the fleet right now. The next one is the delivery of interoperability, which we did have a slight delay. Our 3.6 release for software was impacted by 1 to 2 months. We don't anticipate that will impact the deadline, and we're in the process with the contractor right now to try to mitigate the 3-month slippage. So originally we had it in July, it's now October, and that was a question that Neil had asked early in the day.
One issue, and I realize this is, how are we protecting these new software systems from infiltration and the various threats that are out there, particularly when you're dealing with such important and critical systems? There's
a requirement per FRA to have cryptographic keys and messaging, certain wireless security requirements as far as messaging. So that's where the protection is, and it's built into the design that we have.
So the Commissioner, the FRA established a national standard, and the FRA has also signed off on the systems that are being installed on both Metro-North and Long Island Railroad.
The next risk that we noted is related to software delivery, specifically for Metro-North. This is just for the safety server interface design. Right now, we did talk to Amtrak. Originally, they were supposed to give us an emulator to test the interface in the factory. Right now, they're slated to deliver the actual software second quarter of 2020. So right now, as long as they can deliver it at that time, there should be no impact to the schedule for Metro-North. The next risk that we identified, which is new, is related to the complete design for the M8, which is related to work that needs to be done by part of it needs to be done by a third party. And I don't know if I know there's been a lot of high-level meetings, and there's some designs agreements that have been made to date. And so they have until April of 2020 before we feel that there'll be any impact to the schedule. So right now, so far, very positive discussions, and we don't anticipate that there should be any impact in delivering the system by the deadline. The next one is the change in leadership and the additional resources, which is what we highlighted in February report. I'm happy to say that they actually have a new leadership there. However, they still struggle with meeting some of their commitments on the schedule. One of the areas is transponder designs. However, they have added additional resources over the last few months. Unfortunately, it takes several months for new staff to actually get up to speed. So we did see a little bit of improvement in their delivery schedule for this area, and we're hopeful that they can maintain that. But they continue to be challenged with having the right resources and leadership, and we'll have to closely monitor their ability to provide what is required to meet the deadline.
So Debbie, just before we move on to this slide, can you just give an assessment of the likelihood of Metro North on the one hand and Long Island Railroad on the other meeting the December 2020 deadline?
I'd have to say that I feel we have both railroads have a good chance of meeting the deadline. We're working hard. We've made a lot of segue as far as getting the required functionality to meet the deadline. We have different challenges, but I think equally, I'd have to say that we're on target. I mean, we have a very detailed schedule. We're meeting, I'd probably say 80 to 85% of the schedule commitments. We do have some slippages in certain areas, but they're not. Some of them are a little close to the critical path, like Harold, but we still have a little bit float in the schedule. So I would say that moving forward, as long as we don't incur any major unanticipated technical issues, meeting the deadline should be achievable. Okay, so I think I talked in most detail on most of the stuff that's on the remaining slides. I'd like to just highlight, I guess, moving forward for Long Island Railroad, we have 4 segments actually that we're pushing very hard to put into extended RSD this month. We have Oyster Bay, Far Rockaway, Long Beach, and West Hempstead. So that's due the end of the month, and then we also have a couple more due the end of the year. That right now we're on target. We're using the software that has just been going through safety review, and completion of that review is supposed to be done this week, and then we'll deploy the software across the fleet, and hopefully we'll ramp up. Metro North has already the software that they need to deploy across the fleet. They already have approval from the FRA to go into extended RSD on the rest of their segments. Right now they have about 15% of their route miles in PTC operations, and currently they're on target. So they have a couple more segments that are going to extended RSD towards the beginning of next year, and they plan to be completed in full PTC operations on all of their segments in mid next year. That concludes my presentation. If you guys have any questions.
Yeah, good afternoon. The IEC report is on page 25 of the CPOC book. Since our last report to the board, the project made good progress on a number of fronts, including advancing revenue service demonstration on the pilot lines, as well as on a number of other line segments and branches. The railroads also reached agreement with Amtrak related to the main design approach for interoperability. System integrator did improve the quality of software development and factory testing, and both railroads submitted safety plans for approval to the FRA. However, the project did encounter a number of delays that reduced schedule contingency from 6 months to 3 months for Long Island Railroad. These delays include the delay in software development timeline, delay in transponder design and field testing, delay in availability of wayside interface units for Herald interlocking, and a delay by Amtrak in providing data needed for interoperability testing. With respect to Metro North's slow progress in developing a plan to integrate the M8 fleet into PTC operation is impacting project schedule. Moving forward, there are 3 main challenges that could have an impact on achieving the December 2020 deadline. First, with respect to Long Island Railroad, there is a risk of additional delays in deployment of software release 3.7. This is due mainly to the complexity of the functions included in this release, which are related to back-to-back functions in Herald interlocking, and the likely need for multiple iterations. Also, the delay by Amtrak in providing interface data and software needed for interoperability testing is delaying the deployment of interoperability software for both Long Island Railroad and Metro North beyond February 2020. With respect to Metro North, integrating the M8 fleet into PTC operation continues to present high risk to Metro North's project completion schedule. The M8 fleet may not be ready to conduct extended RSD on the New Haven line and the New Canaan branch in June 2020. Metro North has a contingency plan to employ the diesel trains, the P32 diesel trains, to achieve this intermediate milestone. Currently, there is a need to finalize the scope of work and implementation timeline to qualify the M8 for PTC operation. There's also a need to have a commitment, a firm commitment by Alstom to provide the required support. Alstom provides the onboard software for the M8. We understand that the meeting is scheduled with all main stakeholders at the end of this month to resolve the outstanding issues. In view of the current project risks and the challenges that need to be addressed, the IEC is of the opinion that the project has a fair chance of meeting the December 2020 deadline. This morning we were asked as to what we mean by a fair chance, and we indicated that it means a confidence level of about 60 to 65%. Our confidence will improve provided that the issues that we presented are addressed within a reasonable time frame. This concludes IEC presentation.
I just add one thing before we go to questions of the board. I reached out to Tony Kosha, the chairman of Amtrak, 2 or 3 weeks ago. Tony has assured me that Amtrak is progressing as planned and expects to meet the agreed upon 2020 deadline in advance of the congressional federally imposed deadline of December 2020. We're going to stay in close touch both at my level and at the level of Metro North and Long Island Railroad to make sure that continues to be the case. Any other questions or comments on this? So Tom, when is this scheduled to come back before, when is PTC scheduled to come back before CPOC? Yeah, I think what I'd like to do is not wait 6 months, but 3 months out to do an update. Okay. That okay with everybody? Good. Any other questions? Yeah, Andrew.
Aside from Amtrak, is there any other third party that would cause or possible cause of a delay in us meeting our deadline?
Debbie?
Like I noted for the M8, we do need the cooperation of Alstom.
So Alstom is not in, as lawyers say, contractual privity with the MTA, Metro North or Long Island Railroad. It's a contractor of Bombardier. Alstom appeared before the New Jersey Transit meeting last week, I guess. It's relevant to us because of work that New Jersey Transit is doing on west of Hudson service, and we may invite representatives of Alstom to a future meeting. Any other questions? All right, good. Rolling stock, please. Yes. Well, they're both to be clear, they're both subject to New Jersey Transit's progress, Andrew. Yeah.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jim Allen. I'm the Chief Rolling Stock Program Officer at Long Island Railroad. I'm pleased today to be briefing CPOC on the progress of Long Island's M9 project, as well as the Long Island Metro-North joint M9A railcar procurement. The first slide shows one of Long Island's new M9 cars in our Ronkonkoma yard. On September 10th, a pre-passenger service run from Jamaica to Hicksville and back was conducted to introduce the M9 to the press. The picture on the right is President Eng providing a briefing prior to boarding the train in Jamaica on its way to Hicksville. The next morning, the first passenger service 8-car train left Huntington Station at 6:50 a.m. to carry passengers during the a.m. rush hour. As of today, 12 cars are operating in passenger service throughout Long Island's electric territory. In total, 14 cars have been accepted, and an additional 16 cars are undergoing operational testing at Long Island. We received another pair since we went to publication on this slide. We expect to conditionally accept 2 more cars today, 2 more on Wednesday, and our next consist will be placed in passenger service shortly. The remaining cars are scheduled to be accepted and enter passenger service at an approximate rate of 10 cars per month, and all 202 cars are scheduled to be in service by March 2021. The next slide has 2 pictures following the first day of passenger service showing some of our first customers to ride the M9, along with one of our crew members who appears to be very happy to be working on the bright new M9 car. Slide 4 contains some financial data. The Long Island Railroad awarded a contract to Kawasaki Railcar in 2013 for a base order of 92 cars, and in January 2019 concluded negotiations for additional 110 cars. Negotiations are also currently underway with Kawasaki to procure an additional 54 cars, bringing the total order to 256 cars. We now track the finances of the entire 202-car order, which has a total budget of $734 million, with an estimate at completion of approximately $723 million, leaving a contingency of $10.8 million, which we are confident is sufficient to successfully complete the project. The M9 cars will replace Long Island's M3 cars in their entirety, as well as augment our existing M7 fleet, allowing LIRR to support anticipated ridership growth and additional electrified service demands. Slide 5 identifies a 4-month schedule extension to car acceptance from our last briefing to CPOC in October 2018, which was due to additional testing that was required when the cars arrived on Long Island's property. The primary purpose of testing is to identify any potential issues that would cause a train to be removed from service or to be unavailable for service, negatively impacting our customers. The rigorous testing that was performed on the cars in Pueblo, Colorado, and at Long Island did identify some technical challenges that Kawasaki was required to investigate, identify the root cause of, and correct before the cars could be placed in passenger service. Once an engineering fix was approved, it had to be implemented and tested, and this took additional time to successfully complete to our full satisfaction. Throughout the testing program, we were and continue to be absolutely committed to making sure that the trains were safe and reliable before entering passenger service. Slide 6 is provided as a brief update of where we stand with manufacturing and accepting additional cars, which is the next challenge now that we have the first cars in passenger service. The 106th car shell has commenced fabrication in Lincoln, and at this time more than half the car shells have been manufactured, so we are making progress. There are 20 cars in the final assembly pipeline in Yonkers. As I mentioned earlier, 14 cars have been accepted by Long Island, and 16 cars are at Long Island for testing prior to being accepted and placed in passenger service. Slide 7 is a view of Kawasaki's manufacturing and production facility in Lincoln, Nebraska. The slide on the left shows the initial manufacturing process of the car with a fully assembled car shell on the right. On the left side of slide 8 is a listing of some of the work that will be performed by Kawasaki in Yonkers as part of the M9 final assembly process. And on the right side are 3 cars waiting to enter Kawasaki's final assembly facility. Now I'd like to move on to the M9A procurement. Slide 9 shows our latest rendering of the exterior of Long Island's M9A car. The M9A project is being conducted as a joint procurement to include Metro North, with Long Island serving as the lead agency. Slide 10 identifies the estimated M9A car requirements for both Long Island and Metro North. Between the base order of 88 cars and 72 cars in the first order, Long Island will fulfill the 160-car requirement of the full funding grant agreement for East Side Access. Long Island also has an option for up to 30 locomotive hauled coaches based upon the M9A design. To accommodate any increase in car requirements in addition to those identified above, the M9A contract will be structured with a large quantity of priced options for future procurements of cars, providing Long Island and Metro North with maximum flexibility. Slide 11 is a summary of the M9A project's RFP schedule. Unfortunately, initial proposals provided by car builders came in with prices far in excess of our internal estimates and budget availability. Additionally, the delivery schedules proposed were far greater than what the railroads could accept. As a result, the M9A project team has spent a tremendous amount of time and effort with the car builders to develop technical specifications for the best and final offer that we feel will allow proposers to offer a price and delivery schedule that the railroads find acceptable. Unfortunately, this previously unforeseen extra work has delayed the awarding of the contract, but we could not award a contract that the railroads could not afford and accept delivery of cars far beyond when we require them. BAFO proposals will be received in November of this year, and we anticipate making a contract award in January of 2020. That concludes my presentation.
Jim, what accounts for the increase in contract prices that you've seen recently?
It's essentially the market is flooded. Everybody's out buying cars now. The supply chain is stressed. Buy America adds a significant cost. Our relatively low base order, 88 cars based on some of the prices we're getting now, is resulting in you spread that non-recurring over a very small number of cars. And quite frankly, everyone tells us they lost a lot of money on M9 because we got such tremendous prices. And here's, the way the business is, here's an opportunity for them to try and get better. Unfortunately, M9A bears the brunt of that.
Given what you've just said, do you have or both railroads, is there an expected time when there will no longer be M3s in either railroad's fleet?
I don't want to speak on behalf of the mechanical department, but I believe there's 80 that are going to be retained to support East Side Access service. They're being equipped with PTC so that they can operate and supplement our fleet. And that's kind of our stopgap measure, knowing that M9As will not be here for opening day of East Side Access. 23, 24, Phil, is that the latest on M3s? To be in service until 2023 or 2024, I believe. 80 will be in service till 2023, 2024 was the last date that I had heard.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? IEC, please.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Joe Torres, and I'll be reporting on the M9 project procurement. You'll find this on page 42 of your CPOC book. Pertaining to schedule, as reported by the agency, the IEC schedule review finds the final acceptance of the M9 vehicles will be 4 months later than last reported, which is in line with the negotiated schedule extension. Regarding budget, the IEC budget review finds the project EAC remains at $723 million and is within the project budget of $734 million. The current contingency budget of $10.8 million appears adequate, providing no further scope changes are incurred. Observations. Technical challenges encountered during testing are being addressed. Maintaining the current delivery schedule is dependent on the contractor providing the necessary field and technical support throughout the project.
Thank you. Any questions for the IEC? Jim, any issues with the IEC's recommendations?
No, sir.
Good, thank you. Paul, please.
Good afternoon. Paul Dietland, Chief Engineer, Long Island Railroad Program Management. So today I'll be giving you the status of our current 2019 program goals, as well as a more detailed status of 4 of our projects. So here is our goal chart for the year. We're progressing well towards our goal. We expect to meet or exceed the goal in all 4 areas. In the area of commitments, $38 million recent unplanned Penn Station commitments have pushed us already beyond our goal for 2019. We're on track for meeting our start and completion goal before the end of the year. And of course, we continue to aggressively pursue our closeouts and hope to beat that goal by quite a bit. So now on to some specific projects. Morris Park Locomotive Shop. As a reminder, this project replaced our existing 129-year-old roundhouse. The shop has limited capabilities and capacities compared to our new shop. So the design build projects reached 100% design level for all major design packages. We're currently about 58% complete, and the project remains within budget. Beneficial use has been reforecast out 2 months to May of 2020. This is due to a risk from long lead equipment that I reported back in May of this year. At that time, I talked to you about the closure of the shop equipment manufacturer Macton, who was to supply our turntables, drop tables, and truck lifts. Unfortunately, just prior to the closure, some Macton equipment embeds had already been cast in the foundations, so our new supplier, BBM, needed to wait on the purchase of Macton materials and intellectual property through auction. That resulted in a net 2-month delay. Final design and manufacturing has taken a little bit longer than anticipated. However, we are expected to begin our testing this November, and deliveries will start in January. Our second risk involves the electric service building power tie-in to the new shop. The contractor was responsible to provide an additional feeder by design. Con Ed, however, determined that they will not install a 5th additional feeder into the ESB due to the overall spare capacity within that facility. We've worked very closely with the DB team to come up with a solution. The contractor will be responsible to modify some of the existing switchgear and bus arrangements in the ESB, and that'll create a new dedicated 4,000 amp feed for our new shop. So our equipment's been released for fabrication. It's got a 12-week lead time, and of course we're going to keep monitoring that to make sure that does not become a risk to our testing and commissioning. And to deal with our third risk, force account coordination, we're of course proactively managing this effort with weekly commissioning meetings. We have also incorporated all this work into our contractor's project schedule. And we'll look to transition locomotive work into the new shop following the commissioning. Here's just an aerial overview photo showing progress at the site compared to the inset. Here's a picture of our building south elevation. Our metal wall panels are now installed. Translucent wall panel installation has started in the openings you can see. This is a daylight harvesting system. It will maximize natural light in the shop and improve energy efficiency. On the left is a picture of one of the interior lower pit track areas. It's been designed for employee ergonomics. We place our locomotive components such as the trucks, brakes, and other undercarriage components at employee chest level, increase efficiency, reduce fatigue, preventing injuries. And then, of course, there's a tremendous amount of electrical and communications work taking place in the shop. Here's just a photo of the site work, sub-ballast being installed, and then one of the turnouts being installed on the right. We expect the bulk of the track work will be complete by the end of December. Now Mid-Suffolk Yard. This is a design build east side access readiness project. We continue to progress next to our existing Ronkonkoma yard. We're going to add 11 new tracks. We'll have a total of 23 out in Ronkonkoma when we're complete. Construction's well underway. All major design packages are completed, and the overall project's about 60% complete. At the last CPOC in May, we adjusted the beneficial use out by 8 months. However, we've been able to make a 2-month improvement in that date, moving it up to the third quarter of 2020. This is primarily due to recovery efforts and improvements to the PSE&G DC power feeder schedule that was contributing to that delay. We continue to work with the contractor for further recovery and mitigation, and of course, we want to push that schedule to bring it in sooner. Since the last presentation, we've had progress on a couple other risk elements. The AC substation was identified as a risk. Since then, it's powered up. PSE&G was able to give us power and set the meter last week. So we're furthering testing at that facility, and that will support our completion of work for the building. As for our DC substation risk, PSE&G is in process of awarding a sole source contract to bring in a new feeder from Bohemia by January of 2020. This will meet our power need for DC traction power in the yard. Utility coordination and design are completed for this effort, and we're working closely with PSE&G major account representatives to monitor progress of that contract. We are also meeting with the contractor and the vendor to improve DC substation fabrication schedule. And lastly, the relocation of our forces is listed as a risk because there's an old employee facility in the yard that's on critical path for completion of track work. We're closely tracking the completion of the new building and commissioning so that we can have an efficient and timely move into that new facility by the end of December. Here's just a progress photo. It's a new two-story facility here. The block work's complete, glazing work's underway. Just some general photos of the interior. Partitioning of all interior spaces complete. In fact, although this shows partitions, all the sheetrock has been installed in the bulk of the building at this point, and painting is commenced. Plumbing rough-in, domestic water, sanitary, and mechanical systems are complete. Our boiler and HVAC systems are installed and nearly complete. And of course, our roof is complete, and most of our HVAC equipment has been delivered at this point, 80%. Our power system work continues. Emergency generator and AC substation are in place. Again, testing's underway. And on the lower left, you can see a significant amount of DC traction power duct banks that are now buried. That's for the track, power to the track areas, to the new substation. There's a significant amount of subgrade work and sub-ballast installation ongoing. We've actually also started ballast installation on 2 of the tracks, and we expect to push through the bulk of the track work in the main yard area by the end of the year. And as you can also see, the catenary lighting's complete, in place, powered up. Jamaica Capacity Phase 1, Eastside Access Readiness Project. We'll add a new platform south of the existing platforms. We'll also modify some railroad infrastructure, addressing capacity constraints that exist to allow for Eastside Access opening day service. And we, of course, continue to evaluate our existing baseline service plan, and we're reviewing the opportunities to provide that optimal service for our customers. This is linked to an ongoing scheduled development by our service planning group. Overall, Phase 1 remains on schedule and on budget. It's approximately 63% complete. Third-party completion of Platform F is still forecast for the end of the year. Completion of the supporting track, third rail, and signal infrastructure for Platform F, as well as the universal crossovers on the outskirts of Jamaica, are scheduled for the third quarter of 2020 and third quarter of 2021, respectively, before Eastside Access. We continue to monitor and update our project risks, particularly related to force account availability, material availability, and of course we have a new risk listed. As of July, we're coordinating with New York State DOT for an outside risk related to the Van Wyck widening. So we're closely working with DOT, and we're monitoring for potential impacts to this phase of Jamaica, as well as the next phase of Jamaica. Just some progress photos here. On the left, current overview of the platform looking west compared to the prior inset. Canopy roof framing and roofing works complete on the right. Skylight framing, including some arts for transit elements. For the staircase at the westerly bridge is in progress. With respect to the current platform, there's a tremendous amount of work going on. Architectural elements, escalator and elevator installations are progressing well. And then here's a photo showing some recently completed track reconfiguration work in Dunton Interlocking. This is actually, what you see here is the new North Station track that will serve Platform F. I guess that would be track 11. And our signal forces continue to do a tremendous amount of work in Dunton Interlocking as well as the rest of Jamaica to support the project. And lastly, Jamaica Phase 2 design continues, representing our master plan for Jamaica. It's going to upgrade the existing 1913 track configuration, establish state of good repair on all of our infrastructure, extend our existing platforms to 12 cars, and streamline our switches both east and west of the station to allow for increased speed and promote a more efficient throughput and routing. The design remains on budget and on schedule. We've completed the design brief and 30% design documents for all the stages of Phase 2. We're actively working on the next design deliverables to be submitted in December of this year. And we've also completed our design build documents for the E-Yard extension, which establishes 2 new parallel routes into Jamaica from the east. And construction for this phase will follow in over the next several capital programs. We'll focus on incremental benefit, of course, and state of good repair. And lastly, just a brief update on our annual track program. We've made quite a bit of progress. As you can see in the chart, we're on pace with completing our program goals by the end of the year, both on schedule and within budget. We've done mech tie, concrete tie work, of course, a bunch of switches at grade crossings. Here's just a photo. One of the switches we replaced out in Amont on the Port Jeff branch. Actually, we replaced all 4 turnouts for that universal interlocking. And then on the right, there's a concrete tie installation work we did on the main line track between PW or Deer Park and Ronkonkoma. And that was done during the weekdays. We were able to do that without impacting service due to the completion of the second track.
So, Paul, just before we turn to the IEC, would it be fair to summarize as follows, that Morris Park, Mid-Suffolk, and Jamaica Phase 1 are about 60% done, each of them? Jamaica Phase 2 is designed to about 30%, and the annual track work, about 80% of it's done, and that it's all within budget, and except in a couple of cases, a couple of months, 2 to 3 months off schedule. Is that right?
Yes,
Thank you.
I would agree with that.
Great. IEC.
Can I just ask one question?
Channel.
Paul, I forgive me if I don't remember the details, but there was some question whether with all the work that we're doing on the main line and otherwise, whether we all felt that Jamaica Capacity was getting force account and other resources necessary to keep moving. How do you feel about those issues at this point? It was one of the topics that we covered when we went out and started talking about how to integrate our organization.
So, of course, force account risk is always a concern, but we've been doing a fairly good job about making sure that we're adequately staffed out in Jamaica on that project, as well as third track and our other projects. We have a coordinated or integrated project schedule with other projects to help us with our resource leveling. And one thing we did at Jamaica and continue to do is a lot of the work we've been able to fit or weave into open slots, around our regular operation. So when we have availability of resources, we go out and install a switch, or we do certain signal cutover efforts. So it just takes quite a bit of focus, but our staff does a very good job at that.
Yeah, no, they do, and I just mentioned to the board members present, this is one of the areas that you saw Tim Mulligan has moved over from transit. In the new organization, the coordination of all the different resources that support the much bigger capital programs we're going to try to accomplish is the essence of what he's going to be doing. It's force account, it's outage coordination, it's the piggybacking exercise, it's the equipment that supports outages so that we can create a different capacity level without all of a sudden going into a massive hiring spree. So that is something that I just want to thank Paul, because the railroad and his organization and Phil have been tremendous about moving in this direction as we move to the next capital program.
Great. IEC.
Good afternoon. My name is Mohammad Mohammadinia, and I will be doing the independent engineers review of the Morris Park Diesel Shop and Jamaica Capacity Improvement Phase 1. The IC report on the Morris Park Diesel Shop begins on page 68 of your CPOC books. The IC's review of the project schedule, along with routine site visits, verified that there is a 2-month delay in the drop table, turntable manufacturing, and delivery. Moving forward, the IC agrees with the agency that the power supply tie-in and condensate approval of modification are risks to the project which may impact system testing and commissioning. Based on the IC's review of the project total budget and contingency, the associated design, work in place, and soft costs, the IC finds this project is within budget. This concludes the IC's review of the Morris Park Diesel Shop. And unless there are any questions, I'll move forward to the Jamaica Capacity Improvement.
Any questions on Morris Park? Okay, let's move on. Thank
The IC report of the Jamaica Capacity Improvement Phase 1 begins on page 72 of your CPOC books. The IC's independent review of the project schedule verifies that the Platform F contract is on schedule for substantial completion by December 31, 2019, followed by closeout activities. The overall project completion is tied to signal procurement, installation, testing, and commissioning, which are on schedule for completion by October 2021. The ICs has reviewed the total project budget. A cost analysis was performed on design, construction, soft costs, and contingency to evaluate the project's estimate at completion. Based on this analysis, the IC verifies that the project remains within budget. This concludes the IC's review of Jamaica Capacity Improvement Phase 1.
Any questions or comments? Okay, thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. My name is Calvin Gordon. I'm providing the IC's report on the Mid-Suffolk Yard project, which begins on page 76 of your CPOC book. Based on the IC's review of the project's total budget, contingency, and soft costs, we find this project is within budget. As mentioned by the agency, some activities associated with the AC substation work have been mitigated since last report. However, the IC has determined in its review of the project schedule that the DC substation work continues to be a main contributor to the project delay. The agency has received a recovery schedule, and that is currently under review. The main project risks are associated with the DC and the remaining AC substation activities, as well as the new employee service building completion. It is essential that the AC substation commissioning is successful, as it could directly impact the employee service building cutover and the demolition of the old employee service building which follows. Commission of all building systems before the current scheduled cutover date for the new building in December could be a challenge. Because the employee service building cutover is planned in cold weather, the project team should perform rigorous opposite season functional testing of the HVAC system to ensure nuisance tripping and low temperature devices can be detected early. We see opposite season testing can help identify issues early on with possible savings in time for maintenance costs and long-term energy costs. We finally want to say the project team has been proactive in performing weekly coordination meetings for the various departments that will reside in the new employee service building. That concludes our report.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, good. John Kennard, please, on Metro North.
Good afternoon. My name is John Kennard, Vice President of Capital Program Management at Metro North. Today I'm going to talk about how Metro North is doing versus its commitment and completion goals through August, and then also 3 initiatives that we're pursuing. On the first slide, you can see that on the completions, we are in good shape through August of this year, essentially matching actuals or matching goal. On the area of commitments, we are about 45% of goals through August. We have had some delays in project initiation, obviously. One project we have is a locomotive procurement, which we believe will probably slip into the first quarter of next year. So I anticipate that we will not hit the commitment goal, but I'm confident that we'll hit the completion goal by the end of the year. The next slide is a system-wide track projects that are implemented by our Maintenance of Way division. This is an update through September. The Maintenance of Way division continues to make great progress in many areas. There are 3 areas that they are right now below 50%. There are some extenuating circumstances that I'll talk about. We have a production tie productivity, which is impacted by what's called a hairpin rail spike. It's largely on the Danbury branch. It's an older technology, and it's harder for it to be displaced from the ties and the rail, so therefore it's impacting our productivity. We've had issues with our weld joints, the welding trucks that do our welds on joints have been out of service more than anticipated, so that's caused us challenges. And finally, although Metro North has made significant improvements at our grade crossings, about 75% of them have been upgraded. We focused on areas closer into New York or at higher volume or higher risk areas. We are a little bit behind on those as well. The next thing I'm going to talk about is 2 major projects, the first being Customer Service Initiative, and the second being Harmon Shop Phase 5. So this Customer Service Initiative is a $220 million.
Hey, John, I'm sorry,
Sure.
just before we go there, what do you think the progress looks like for the 5 remaining grade crossings this year and into next?
I believe in talking to MW, we thought that those would be probably not made this year, but would probably move into next year. You're right back there. You're right. Okay. I have to check with Glenn to make sure I'm right on that one. So Customer Service Initiative, a $220 million initiative. It basically is improving our capability to provide service information to our customers. So some highlights on that. We did a central control, a new central control in Grand Central, which is the brains of the system. We have improved the cable plant, the installation, which basically connects the central control into the various apparatus. We've replaced the new GCT big boards, and I'll show you a picture of that in a moment. And we've begun the gate board installation. We're completed at the lower level, the dining concourse. We're now moving into the upper level, and eventually we will get out into North End access. At outlying stations, we're making progress in installing cameras, customer information, different control systems at those stations, and we'll bring 7 online this year and continue through 2021 with our installation. Security is obviously a big part of it with the camera installations. We're also upgrading our security head end at our security head ends out in the suburbs, and that will allow us to control and do some video management of those cameras, allow different people in the company to look at the cameras as needed. The project is within budget, but since the last time we reported, there's been a minor 2-month slip that we're working to recover. The next slide is the big boards in GCT. I should have brought a before and after. They actually are beautiful. The before was much worse, much dimmer. This slide, actually, the gate board shows that. The big board looked similar to this on the left, and this is the new gate board in the lower level right now. The good thing about this, as I said with the central control, these are much more flexible machines. Both the big boards and these machines can do more than just this, so we can take over. There are some of these screens we've taken over and actually shown different departures by line, where areas where there's no longer a gate, because when East Side Access came in, they took track 117, for example. So you go down there, instead of seeing departures, you actually see more information. So it really gives the company flexibility both for these as well as the big boards. The last picture is for an outlying stations. This is some of the signage that we're putting in at the stations. as well as the cameras that we're putting in different locations. We'll also be putting in information at the canopy edge, which shows the next 3 departures. We're working on those to upgrade the Daktronics system that's been in place for many years. So on Harmon Shop, there's 2 stages to Phase 5. The first one we're in right now is a budgeted $316 million design build. When we reported on this last time, we ran into CO issues, carbon monoxide issues at some of our wash tanks and one of our rooftop units. So we've spent time making sure that we corrected all of those issues. So some of the things we did was we put in draft inducers, which are either vents to the outside, or if we had a vent already, we put in fans to try to make sure we had a good draw and we could make sure we were drawing carbon monoxide out or maintaining it in the combustion chamber. We put a separate CEO shutdown on each of these machines. So if the machine detected carbon monoxide, it automatically shut the system down, or that particular machine down around the shop. And we also put a separate CO detection system basically shop-wide. So it basically is a much more robust system. It ties into the BMS system. It ties into the fire command control. So we believe it's a much safer system. We followed similar work at the Consys shop facility. The EMU Annex has support shops. The Consys shop is a concept, allows us to do repairs on a Consys basis. And what we're doing now with that is we're completing functional testing of what's called a bug and stinger system, which allows us to bring equipment in and out of the shop using not under external power, but the internal power of the system. So right now we're in a phased move-in. We're largely complete with the EMU Annex, and we're completing the move-in of the Consys shop facility, and we're going to take beneficial use of these shops this month. Right now we've been pushed back because of these issues, so we're working with the contractor right now and going through negotiations on the final budget review. Next slide is just pictures of the EMU Annex on the left and the Consys shop facility on the right. People, if I had updated pictures, there'd be people in these pictures now because employees are in the shops. The last slide is stage 2. So stage 2 is the last remaining element of probably about a $1.2 billion effort to rebuild the 100-year-old facility at Harmon. This is a $439 million budgeted project to replace the electric car facility. It was awarded last year, and we expect it to be done. The original contract end date is October 2022. The design build team, which is a joint venture of Skanska and Echo, is continuing to advance design elements. They've completed a number of items for release for construction, early construction of the south yard, foundation plans, and they're continuing other design work in the running repair support shop, the blow shed, et cetera. We are working with them now on the recovery of the schedule. We obviously lost time. They believe right now we're about 5 months behind based on the challenges of bringing in the first phase, but we're now working with them on trying to recover that schedule. We continue to monitor our risk assessment to try to control risk. We're looking at enhancing our onboard design reviews, making sure that all of our people in maintenance of equipment in the power department and our department are working closely together to get the design review done as quickly as possible. That will be one way that we can control the schedule risk. And we're looking to have an engineer of record in the commissioning protocols, I'll say enhanced from the lessons we learned in phase 1. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Good afternoon. My name is Diane Rinaldi. My report on the Harmon shops begin on page 91 of the CPOC book. As John reported, the project team resolved the issues that were delaying occupancy of the EMU and the Consys shops, and Metro North staff have started moving into both buildings. Stage 1 is on track to reach substantial completion as reported before the end of the year, and possibly sooner. The independent engineer has reviewed the budget and commitments and has determined that the Stage 1 design build contract contingency has been depleted. However, the Stage 1 reserve should be sufficient to complete the work of this contract. Lastly, the independent engineer has observed that many of the issues that impacted the design and schedule of Stage 1 resulted in improvements to the safety and functionality of both completed shops. Some of these changes are also expected to improve the efficiency in completing the work of Stage 2. And that concludes my remarks.
Thank you. Any questions for the IEC? Good, thank you. Thank you, John. Ronnie?
Thank you. The summary of commitments appears on page 96. In 2019, the agencies plan to commit a total of $5.6 billion, including 36 major commitments that we're tracking throughout the year. By year end, the MTA forecasts meeting about 90% of its 2019 commitment goals. Two projects slide into January 2020, one into February, and then the last one into May. The summary of completions appears on page 100 of the book. In 2019, the agencies plan to complete a total of $3.4 billion, including 24 major completions that are tracked. By year end, the MTA forecasts meeting all of its 2019 completions goal. And that concludes the report.
Terrific. Any questions or comments for Ronnie? With that, I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second? Thank you.